よはじねよはじねよはじねよはじねあべによべによべによべによはいへよべによべによはいへはよはじね
Welcome back to another episode of Voices for the Earth, and today I am here in the Onondaga Nation with Wendy Gonyea, and you can introduce yourself if you want.
Okay. Honagayagi nuawa ge se de gaye waknuske gus haitne yesta. I am of the Beaver Clan of the Onondagas.
So we're gonna start off with this question. What was the Onondaga Nation Territory here? What was it like when you were younger?
Oh my goodness. It was, well, where I grew up for my life growing up, it was very, very different than it is today. I lived on the south end of the nation, north end of the nation, I'm sorry, and about um, maybe an eighth of a mile away from the main road. So we had to walk up to our house, and our house didn't have running water, did not have any electricity, and it was great. My younger years were spent in the woods. We had a large family. I had 10 brothers and sisters, and my parents, and we got water from the well. I went with my brothers to get wood for the fire, and we all helped with our chores. So it was a completely um, different way of living, which I think kind of centered me in resourcefulness and not being wasteful, and just being outdoors.
So how have you noticed the environment like change in the recent years compared to when you were growing up?
Oh, well, when I moved into a house, had my own children, with all the conveniences, I tried to limit them. For example, when my kids were in school, and some days they would come home and I would tape over the television set because I wanted them to go outdoors. I wanted them to experience something else other than a machine in the living room. So they remember that. I mean, we'll laugh about it now, but and also along with that, I kind of made it a priority to go in the woods as much as we could because we're the people of the hills, so there's woods everywhere, and we had our favorite places to go to get leeks in the spring and just to be there. And I think that helped shape them as young adults, to go out and keep those memories and keep that idea of taking care of it.
Do you have like any memories of Onondaga Creek when you were little?
Mm. Yeah, I have a lot of memories. When I was younger, when we lived that distance from the road, we walked down to the main road, cross the road to the creek as a family. We would all follow in line, and we'd spend afternoons, the whole family, both my parents, all the kids, swimming together. And those are like that. My parents tell me that at one time I almost drowned uh, because my dad let me go didn't know I couldn't swim, and let me go into a deep place, and they had to fish me out, but I don't remember it. And then when I grew up, when we were teenagers, we used to swim at, they call it the bridge on the Nation, and it's right off of Gibson Road. And that was like a meeting place for all the young people to have fun, to, you know, just have a good time in the creek. We swam there. We also swam as a family up past the dam. There's another spot up there where we went as a family, and we'd spend the whole day. And this is a little personal, but us girls would wash our hair when we were older, in the creek. So there was a lot of experiences that we had as a family in the water. And what really made me feel pretty bad was my kids when they were teenagers, when they were growing up. They didn't have that. They never swam in the creek like I did. They didn't. It wasn't a part of, their life. To For them to cool off in the hot summer, I had to drive and take them to a beach somewhere, or if I knew somebody with a pool, which was hardly ever. But anyway, they didn't have that.
Can you like explain the importance of the Onondaga Creek to your nation?
Well, the creek is part of who we are. I've talked to elders in my lifetime who told stories about going there to fish, spending all day and spearing, getting there were eels in the creek at one time, and they would take frying pans and those heavy pans and cook it up right there by the water. So the creek was part of the community, and to see how it is now, how it's turned muddy and brown, is pretty sad. It's pretty sad to see that in my lifetime, but it's it's part of why we need people to work to protect our ways, protect our resources, and those things that are a part of us.
Do you like know what caused the creek to turn like all muddy and brown?
Well, from what all the research points to the Tully mud boils that happened just south of our community, and there was a lot of drilling for salt mines in that area, several wells, and these turbulent wells of mud boiled up and have been running into our creek for the past, I think, about 30 years. And so you can't see very well to the bottom. Some days it looks better, but mostly it's this brownish, muddy color. And I know people continue to fish. One of my brothers lives near the water and he fishes, but not, often. I mean, they still, the older people still like to be out there and be with it, be near it. Um, but it's it's pretty it's it's what happened to when you have development close to your nation, to your territory, and you don't have a say over what they're doing. Um, then all of a sudden we're affected by it, and that's that's how the company led to, well, I guess a part of the story back would be we're eventually going to have land back for the damage that happened to our creek and Onondaga Lake. So it's sort of a payoff, but it's kind of a bittersweet one.
So, how have these changes affected the cycle of ceremonies from what you've observed?
The changes in our environment, in overall, um, what what I feel good about is we still have our trees, we still have our land base, we still have animals. Our men still are hunting. We still have a lot of good things to be thankful for. Um, but we know what's happening around us. We know that there's pollution, that we see things come off from our creek off of 81. I've been on that little stream bed with it's beautiful back there. And if you walk up towards the interstate, pretty soon you're going to see tires and metal things from cars off of the roadway. But so it's invasive on our lands, and it does affect our waters. We There was a dumping spot in another um, part of our territory towards Lafayette, and we followed that water trail down, and you could see sort of a rusty metal color to the water from the source of the dump, and then it flows into our nation, and it looks better. But these sources, these pollution, the damages that are happening around us are serious, and they affect us. Um, I used to, as a young person, drink wherever I wanted to in the woods. And sometimes now I'm thinking, well, what about the source, when it's flowing down? But we do have springs. We have one source of water that I drink every day, and it's naturally fed water off of Gibson Road. And a lot of people come, even from people who don't live on the nation. They come with their jugs and buckets and fill up water pails, and it's free. It's a good source for us, and we share it.
So you said you drink from that water source every day?
I do, yes. I just got filled up my water jugs yesterday. I make my coffee with it. I water my plants with it. My garden, oh, my garden, we lug these big 5-gallon buckets up to water my garden with it. But there is a stream nearby, so maybe next spring I'll have a way to divert it so that it comes to the garden rather than having to lug, because it's pretty tough. I get help from my kids, but still. I mean, I'm the one who's, they got to have
Yeah.
water today. You got to be there.
How have you noticed a change in your garden, like when you're planting in recent years?
Oh, well, I I wasn't a big garden person at the beginning. We always had gardens when I was little, and we always foraged, strawberries, whatever was out there. But growing up, I didn't garden until my later years, and my brother was always in the garden. We had a large area behind where I live, and he was there all the time, and I would go up there and see him and sometimes help with the harvest. We did help, but he was always sharing. I'd come out to my door and there'd be potatoes or there'd be squashes and something. So he kind of, he's elder now. Well, we both are, but he's a little older than I am. And I see that he was slowing down. So I wanted to be there. I wanted to um, get in the garden and plant. So, and I did the most that I have done the past year, and it's so much hard work, but I enjoy it. I really like being there in the morning when it's quiet. Well, it's not quiet because you hear the birds and you hear movement. It's just a nice place to be in the garden. Um, but with the summers being the way this summer, we had a lot of warm, super warm days. So they needed, we needed to be there with the water. So I think the climate, the way it's changing. I used to always get wild strawberries and in the same field near the garden. And then I'd have a break, like maybe 2 weeks of rest time before blackberries came. But now I noticed they're right behind strawberries, almost the same time. You get strawberries, and then blackberries are that. You got to do that. You don't get a break. So, and this year I didn't find a lot of blackberries. Some years they're very plentiful, but the dry and the heat, I didn't find a lot this year, which is sad because I like to make pies.
Yeah, even at home, we've noticed because we used to get wild strawberries behind our house, and that was like what, 10 years ago? And now we don't see them anymore. Like, even then, when my dad would go look for them, he would only bring back like two.
Yeah, yeah. I used to be what that was one of my special times. My mom, who passed away several years ago, my favorite thing was to get the wild strawberries and then go, share some with her. But it's there aren't as plentiful, and sometimes, we need so much for ceremonies.
Mhm.
So I like to pick the wild ones first before I go to any kind of a farm and pick, because you get spoiled because they're so big and
Yeah.
juicy, and then you don't want to go back and get the little tiny ones. So
So, how have you seen a disconnect in nature throughout the generations?
disconnecting nature. I'm hoping that they appreciate it. I think there's so much technology. I understand its usefulness and how people can instantly be connected and things like that. But I try to tell young people to find a balance. There's a time to do those things with technology, to use it and for a good purpose, to learn. But you also need to get yourself in the woods and be around the woodlands, our life, because that's who we are. That's part of us, and to enjoy it and preserve it. That's my favorite place to be, is in the woods. And I hope young people um, can feel that connection too. I'm just afraid um, that we might lose it. I'm hoping that we don't though. But I try to. I spoke to some kids just yesterday and talked about our Thanksgiving, and how we have all these gifts all around us to be thankful. They like people in schools now because it's Thanksgiving time, and um, but I try to share our teachings about Thanksgiving, and it should be every day, and we need to take care of each other and our planet because we're all related, and that's all we have.
Can you like elaborate a little more on how Ganoniok or the Thanksgiving address correlates with like giving, how do I want to phrase this? Like correlates with taking care of the earth.
Oh, well, I think because we are taught to acknowledge and give thanks for all of the gifts, when we really feel it and believe it, that we're going to be the ones to work and help protect it. Um, it's it's not just words. I know we teach it to our kids, and as a to recite it and to do it, but to really feel it. It's our words in our language have meaning behind them more than English. And the elder speakers used to always say that to me, and I didn't understand, because it was hard for them to say things in English. Um, and I think that's what they were getting at, is the meaning behind the words, that you need to truly live it, um, and feel it. That's what our language is, very powerful. It's very old, and it's special because, and we need to appreciate it, respect it, take care of it, and live it.
So, what message do you have for the youth today and the future generations?
Ooh. The youth have a great responsibility, and because they're the future, whatever happens is going to be really up to them and their voices and their actions. I think they need to keep that balance, keep keep strong in traditional teachings and those words of our elders, keep them close, but also enjoy life. There are a lot of great opportunities, there are great places to visit and see, but keep it inside you and remember who you are, and live a good life in a good way.
Right. So, that's all that I have for today. Thank you for letting me interview you. Just want to say meow.
Ah, yeah.
The average temperature across the United States has risen since 1901, while it began to significantly increase since the 1970s. Climate change is likely responsible for the different changes to the weather. Although the change in weather may not seem so significant, it can indirectly affect the planting season. With the warming of temperatures, the glaciers melt, causing the oceans to rise, affecting the people who live on coastal islands, or the flooding of rivers and mudslides. Simultaneously, in other areas of the world, the rise in temperature can cause drought and wildfires from the high temperatures. In many places within the United States, we are privileged to not directly face the impacts of climate change, except through the warm 50-degree days in December, or many places not getting their first snow until mid December. Even though humans may not notice the change, the animals notice, changing their habits. Migratory birds are not flying to their usual winter homes. Some of the plants start to bloom earlier or later than usual, while droughts can put stress on the plants, causing them to begin changing the color of their leaves or shedding them early. These changes are a clear sign that climate change is already here. By noticing these changes, we have a chance to respond and make a positive impact, ensuring a healthier planet for the future. To find out when and where new episodes are released, follow Haudenosaunee Environmental Task Force on Facebook and Voices for the Earth on Instagram. I would also like to say Nyawa to Aaron Printup for the music. Nyawa for listening.
Kayowane, 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 kayowane,